Aren't you grateful? Sleeping Alexandra groaned as I read in the lounge of our Oslo apartment. She seldom had nightmares, and I thought I'd better wake her. I discovered her thrashing her limbs about. Her eyes spun and she rotated her head as though possessed, her face puffy and green. I tried to rouse her without luck. I didn't know the emergency number for an ambulance. How could I not know? I rang my brother-in-law, who passed it on. In crises, how many lives are lost because of language? Alexandra came to. There was a large wet patch in the bed. My first thought was that something had happened to the baby. I'd known so many women who faced the emotional and physical pains of miscarriage. Now it was Alexandra. I cradled my tearful partner and heard a vehicle pull into our parking lot. It was about 1 a.m. on a Tuesday. No cars pulled up this late at the end of autumn. Surely the ambulance could not have been so quick. I opened the window of our fifth-story apartment and motioned to the paramedics to come up. Bemte, Tasha. 2 workers in red attended to Alexandra. She stared at the damp part of the sheet and was informed by the workers that the wet patch was just urine. They applied electrocardiogram electrodes to her chest. After calming her and measuring her blood pressure, they assisted her from the bed. Can you get dressed? Alexandra opened the wardrobe door and sobbed. I don't know. You don't know what you need or how to get dressed? She could not answer. You will need shirt, trousers, and underwear. The other paramedic joined me in the lounge. It was crazy, I said, still shaking. She was like a demon. His eyes sussed me. I wasn't sure if he viewed me as someone in shock or just another mad foreigner in Norway. We'll be taking your partner to the hospital. Do you want me to come, Alexandra? I asked her. It's up to you. I couldn't handle going outside to the wind and icy ground, the demons, the darkness, the cold, the trauma, the fear. I let the ambulance take Alexandra to receive treatment without me by her side. Her sister picked me up 2 hours later. I had calmed. We drove to the hospital. In the emergency room, Alexandra's reflexes were checked with hammer tests. They asked her to touch her nose and stretch her arms. Nurses did blood tests and another ECG. Transferred to the neurology ward, she was finally allowed to rest. The following day, she received a chest X-ray and cardiac ultrasound. They performed an electroencephalogram, which revealed no abnormalities. Her doctor concluded that the collapse was caused by the heart and not the brain. The next day, surgeons implanted a loop recorder under her skin. Following Saturday, she received an MRI scan on her brain to rule out epilepsy. Back at home, I got a notification on my phone. Do you want to join a mate and me for a couple of beers? Who's that? Alexandra said. It's Alex. He's invited me for drinks. Go. I don't feel like it. Go. You can't hang around thinking something bad is going to happen to me. Get out of the house. Go. I met Alex and his friend for a couple of beers. The bar closed and I bussed home. Upon entering the apartment, I dropped my wallet, which slammed on the wooden floor, waking Alexandra. I feel so tired, she said. I'm sorry. I looked to the foot of the bed. Ah, you prepared pajamas for me. I showered, returned to the bedroom, and turned the light on. She placed a pillow on her face. It slid off. She moaned. Once again, her face went green, her eyes rolled around, and she threw her arms about. I cradled her, hoping she had come to from the seizure as she did previously. She lay still and ceased breathing. I turned her onto her back, pressed her nostrils down, and blew air from my mouth to hers. I wasn't sure if the breath to compression rate was 10 to 2 or 15 to 2. At the 10th breath, I pumped her heart twice, gave another 10 breaths and 2 pumps. Alexandra stirred. Another wet patch dampened the bed. She was struggling to breathe and screamed as I called for an ambulance. The normally stoic woman broke down, bawling in confusion, unaware of what her body was saying. Is this damaging my baby? Once again, the paramedics arrived quickly. Alexandra told them of her loop recorder and remote control. Do you have pain in your chest? Yes. I travelled in the ambulance with Alexandra to Ligevacht Hospital Accident and Emergency. We were to be transferred to Ulleville Hospital, so I hailed a taxi. The takia-wearing driver pulled his car over. Salam, I said to him. Salam. Leaving the vehicle, Alexandra gave me a mocking stare. You could have died. Does this experience lead you to believe in a higher power? I asked her. No. She was kept in the cardiology ward for the next 2 weeks, monitored under telemetry. On a freezing day, following a difficult shift shoveling snow from a roof, I went for a drink before visiting Alexandra at the hospital. In my fluorescent work clothes, I sat at the bar with a beer, reading a book. An oil-scented aromatic drinker sat next to me and finished her glass of white wine. What are you reading? Liza of Lambeth by Somerset Maugham, I said, omitting the writer's first initial. I want to read more. I read Haruki Murakami. Do you like Haruki Murakami? I've read one of his books, I said. I wasn't used to having strangers engage with me conversation-wise in Oslo bars, at least not before 11 p.m. I read Norwegian Wood. It was very good, she said. What other books do you recommend? I didn't know what to tell her. She asked for another wine. I ordered a second beer. I explained my predicament with Alexandra, how she almost died and no one knew what was wrong with her, that the pregnancy made things so much more complicated. I know, she said, putting a hand on my forearm. It's hard. I lost my husband some years back. I never got over it. I see him in my son. He's 20. I'm 56. But age is just a number. I have a young heart. You look great for your age. Conscientious strangers on bar stools were extinct, I'd thought. Something lost to 20th century film. She stroked my hand as I told her my girlfriend and unborn child might die. I have to go to the hospital. It's been lovely talking with you. Hiss! She lurched forward, her right hand on the back of my head, left arm around my upper torso. We locked lips. I didn't expect this, yet was feeling so vulnerable. I regretted withdrawing from her flattering gesture. I wiped my mouth, said goodbye, and got on the bus to the hospital. Alexandra was moved to Rikshospitalet, where she was placed in the cardiology ward. She spoke with a gynecologist, and the cardiology specialists planned her labour. The specialists discovered she had an arrhythmia, an inconsistent heartbeat. They were unable to determine if it was a past condition or brought on by the pregnancy. To correct this issue, Alexandra had to have a catheter ablation. Wires were inserted through her groin in order to destroy the faulty heart tissue causing the irregular heartbeat. To avoid harming the baby, she refused the offer to take fentanyl for the pain, going under the knife with local anesthetic. A week later, surgeons cut open her chest and implanted a cardiovascular device. She was discharged from hospital without a medical bill. The big day arrived. It had been a nervy few months since the cardiac arrests, more so for Alexandra. During the labour process, the midwife pulled her cell phone out and began talking. Is now the time to speak on the phone? I asked myself. I realized it was about Alexandra's heart. The cardiologist was telling the midwife Alexandra was pushing too hard and needed to relax to ensure her heart didn't give out. She vomited red bile into a bag. The bloody waterfall marks her end. Can our son be saved? My system crashed, and rather than view her death, I slipped into the bathroom. I needed to give space to the doctors to sustain her being if they could. From the corner of my eye, I noticed a bottle of raspberry cordial on the shelf next to her bed, a drink supplied by her sister, who stayed with us through the labour process. I fist-pumped the air. There was black hair on the baby's head as he came into the world. The Norwegian system had healed my partner and brought me a son, Theo. I cut the umbilical cord. While it is frowned upon to brag about oneself, Norwegians take pride in their nation and giant extended Norwegian family. We have the freshest tap water, wouldn't you agree? We have the best system in education for childcare, wouldn't you agree? People born with disabilities or crippled by injury only deserve the best rehabilitation service, wouldn't you agree? Healthcare is the #1 human right, and Norway tops the world in this aspect. Wouldn't you agree? Yes. The Norwegian system saved your partner's life. Aren't you grateful? I consider the shitty employment, stretched darkness, high tax rates, unlimited layers of winter clothing, dull cuisine, silent invisible neighbours, robotic, uncurious and rampant predictable collectivism. I think of Theo and Alexandra safe and healthy. And then there is Finn.no. Yes, I'm grateful.